Hello and welcome to this introductory video outlining the English Language and Literature A-Level that's offered at Old Swinford Hospital Sixth Form. If you've got any questions following this particular talk, get in touch with Mrs. Kaempf, who's the subject leader, or you can get in touch with myself. The talk should last about 20 minutes, and in the final 10 minutes before the transition to the next video on the induction material, we'd suggest that you take a bit of time having a look through some of the things that have been advertised and talked about in today's video. The course that's offered at OSH follows the OCR specification. So the first thing that we'd suggest that you do is go onto the OCR website, type in English Language and Literature and look at the specific specification that's offered. It would be useful as well to print that off ready for September. There are 4 different components to the OCR course. The first is exploring non-fiction and spoken text, which is an hour exam and it's worth 16% of your overall A-level. The second unit is the language of poetry and plays, and that's a 2-hour module. 2-hour exam, that's worth 32%. Reading as a writer and writing as a reader is a 2-hour open book exam, and that's worth 32%. And you do an NEA, that stands for non-exam assessment, and that's an independent study analysing and producing texts and producing something creative from that, and that's worth 20% of your overall A-level. So that first module is the shortest of all the modules. It's a 1-hour exam and it's about you investigating spoken and written texts which are pre-19th century and post-2000. So you'll have a look at a variety of different examples. You'll look at different kinds of rhetoric skills. I found in my own experience, those students that do English and classical civilization, after being a classics teacher, that the English students have a variety of different ways in which they can understand how rhetorical devices are employed by writers. So for example, you'll be looking at things by Jamie Oliver, Dizzy Rascal, Russell Brand. You'll be looking at institutions as well, like the NSPCC. Component 2 is a 2-hour exam, and you have to study 2 different texts as part of this, and there's a few different options. The options that are chosen at OSH are Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire and Carol Ann Duffy's Rapture. So for section A, you'll be looking at Carol Ann Duffy's collection of poems in Rapture and trying to do some stylistic analysis of those poems. Section B is the stylistic analysis of a play, and that specific one is Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. And with that, you'll be looking at the exploration of both different kinds of texts and looking at how you can analyse their style and the dramatic devices that they use. Component 3 is a 2-hour open book exam, and that's reading as a writer. That's what the course is called. That focuses on exploring the nature of narrative in one fictional text. Now, the text that's been chosen by OSH is Ian McEwan's Atonement, and you may have watched the film that stars James McAvoy and Keira Knightley. If you haven't watched it, that might be a good thing to watch, and actually as summer preparation, it would be an excellent activity for you to read Atonement. Section B, which is writing as a reader, develops the understanding of narrative technique, and that's through a creative writing task that you set and a commentary from that. It's an open book exam, so you're able to bring in a copy of Atonement, and you're able to use that as part of your assessment. Unit 4 is your non-exam assessment, so you'll set that in at the end of year 12 going into year 13, and that's an independent study. So if you do history and geography as well, they are courses which have an NEA component. As part of that, you will write a comparative essay based on one prescribed text along with a text that you have selected. So if you look on the OCR specification page, you can have a look at some of those texts that you may wish to compare it with. One has to be non-fictional, one has to be fictional. So for example, a few students last year looked at Solomon Northup's 12 Years a Slave as their non-fiction text, and then compared that and contrasted that with a fictional study that's based on a similar sort of theme. What you also have to do as part of that is you have to produce a creative element where you extend your chosen theme and represent it through a non-fiction text. It can be quite creative in its format, and again, look on the OCR website for some forms of that. This is a creative subject, and you're given that license in component for the non-exam assessment. The department is a big department. English is one of our biggest departments, but at A-level, to study the English language and literature course, you'll have Miss Kaempf and you'll have Mr. Jeffries. The department is so supportive in the fact that other teachers who may not be your subject teachers will be able to offer support if you ask for it. You get an examiner's insight as well from Miss Kaempf, so she examines different pieces of work for OCR, and there's a 100% pass rate in the subject, and we have a consistent track record of students getting A's and A stars. The department is based in the Folian Centre, which you can see in the picture that's provided, not the picture of the theatre obviously, and these are newly built classrooms, so there's a drama space, there's a multimedia suite, and the department takes use of the entire Folian Centre if the lessons require it. You'll have the opportunity to attend theatre trips and lecture days to support the learning as well, but with the current situation as it is, it's actually possible to look at a lot of plays online, so that's something I'm going to reference in a second. To study English language and literature at A-level, you need to make sure that you meet the overall entry requirements of the school, which is 7 pass grades, and you need to ensure that you have a grade 6 in your English language and a grade 6 in your English literature. You need a grade 6 in both. In terms of the desirable traits, you need to enjoy reading for pleasure, it's English, and you need to enjoy reading beyond the curriculum as well. That's going to be particularly useful for component 4. And component 2 as well, to contrast different poetry and plays. You should be confident in writing extended essays, because that's how the vast majority of the course is assessed, and you should enjoy creative writing, because there will be a component in the A-level of that. Where you can go with English language and literature is essentially anywhere. So a few years ago, the Russell Group University conglomeration listed English literature as a facilitating subject. So they said that was a subject that would be highly advantageous if you wanted to do any kind of course at undergraduate level. So, having English is useful to study any humanities or arts-based degrees, but it's also can be quite useful if you're looking to apply for courses for like medicine or law, because if you're applying for medicine, it'll give you those debating and analytical skills that are useful for MMIs, so small interviews that take place when you're applying for different medical schools, and for law as well, when you're critically analysing material that's presented in front of you. In terms of the skills that's developed in the subjects, that's the reason why it's such an important facilitating subject. So I'm not going to read through all of those ones that are there, but English language and literature will develop all of those key competencies, those key skill sets, and they're the things that universities and institutions are really looking for when you're applying in year 13. So for the summer, we'd like you to make sure that you do the essential bridging tasks that have been set by the department. But likewise, you need to consolidate GCSE work, you need to broaden your subject horizons, and you can get used to some of the A-level content as well that the department have prepared. So to consolidate GCSE work, you should be looking at the English language materials that you were set for revision, and you just need to be ticking along closely with that. What we would also suggest in terms of consolidating your GCSE work is to continue reading. That's something that obviously is encouraged when you're at GCSE standard, but it might be a while since you've done that. So what we would suggest that you do is aim to read some of the suggested texts for the OCR course. Atonement is obviously a fictional text. You've got the poetry of Carol Ann Duffy, and you've got Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire as the play. It would be useful to invest and take a bit of time over the summer reading one or more of those particular texts. To broaden your subject horizons, there obviously have been a lot of downsides to lockdown, but one upside is that the National Theatre have put free full-length plays every Thursday on YouTube, and obviously this is a temporary solution for the National Theatre, and it's really important that we do support the arts during what is a very difficult time period for them. So we would really ask that you spend some time looking at what the National Theatre have to offer, going onto YouTube. You can make donations. That would be a really good way of making sure that we keep the arts alive. And some of these plays, it's not necessarily the plays that you'll be looking at. I don't think A Streetcar Named Desire's come up yet, but you can just see things like dramatic devices, stylistic themes. They would be good things to be looking for when you're watching these various different plays on YouTube. There's a really good podcast as well called A Way with Words, and that's a way in which they try and look at how language can be used by different individuals, how it's been used throughout time, how it's been used by different cultures. It's a really good podcast to subscribe to over the summer. For English language and literature, Mr. Jeffries has created a number of different activities, so a number of different lessons, almost taster lessons, that can help prepare you for September. So if you're really wanting to get those top grades, you can contact Mr. Jeffries, and his email is on the screen, and you can ask him for some of the A-level materials. I won't put them up on this particular video or send them as part of the overall materials, because they are quite they're quite big documents. So if you contact him directly, he'll be able to pass them on. So for example, there's one activity which is specifically on horrible histories and analysing the way in which language has been used by one of the sketches for the CBBC show. Bridging tasks are the essential tasks that you need to complete for September. You should do the middle task, and you should choose 2 of the other activities from around the outside. So the thing that you need to do is specifically focused in on your language component and paper 1. So what we'd like you to do is choose a famous speech, and we'd like you to transcribe 3 to 5 minutes of the speech. Have a look at how the speaker has used language in that particular context. Now you can annotate your script. You can use detailed findings, and you can use the key that's been provided on the bridging task materials. If you want to have a bit of a hint on that one, maybe look at some famous speeches from history, so from some key figures, individuals maybe like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Winston Churchill. Be useful to look at some of the most notable speeches in history, and try and think about the rhetorical devices that they might have used to persuade people of their particular viewpoint. The other activities that you could choose, well, you could create your own glossary of literary and linguistic terms and add examples for your own reference from books that you've been reading over the summer period. Find out who these people are or were, and write a short blurb about what they do for a living. That would be useful for paper 1. So you've got people like Caitlin Moran. It'd be really useful for you to know her. Julia Gillard as well, former Australian Prime Minister. If you go on YouTube and have a look at her speech that she did to the Australian Parliament, that might even be one of the speeches that you choose for the middle task. You could select a poem of your own choice. You could annotate it and create a mind map exploring the poem's central themes and devices which the author uses, but try and make sure that it's not a poem that you studied for GCSE. Try and broaden your horizons there. And finally, research and make notes about Captain Robert Scott. Now, you've seen a picture of him already in this particular video, and what you will be doing when you arrive in September is you'll be looking at that particular individual. So try and take notes using the Cornell method of note taking. You'll have to find out what that is as well, and that would be a good use of your summer break. So thank you very much for watching and for listening. Before you go to the next video, have a look at some of the things that have been referenced here. Make sure that you've taken some notes, maybe decide which of the bridging tasks you want to go for as well. Thank you very much.